Hi everyone, this is Stephanie Wirtz, and I decided to do my screencast on Washington State because I've worked there, visited there, and kind of lived there for a brief period of time because I was working there. Um, okay, so what I'll kind of be talking about during this is just a brief kind of background of Washington, my experience, some of my favorite things to do, and some famous natural landmarks. So Washington State is one of the two states part of the Pacific Northwest. The other one is obviously Oregon. Fun fact, I actually went to school at the University of Oregon in Eugene. So another factor of why I love the Pacific Northwest, because I have ties to both Washington and Oregon. Washington, I also forgot to add this in here. Washington was also named after George Washington. Washington is also has a lot of very green scenery, and approximately half the state is covered in forest, as you can see by this picture I added. I worked in Washington for 2 years. In 2010 and 2011, I worked on one of the many islands, or a good handful of islands in Washington. And the specific one I worked at is located between Seattle and Tacoma. And it's called Vashon Island. And I worked at a summer camp on it. The island, as I mentioned before, since Washington is approximately 50% forest, is covered with trees. And on the island of Vashon, there's only kind of one town that's kind of spread out through the island, that all the stores and everything are localized, but the housing and stuff is kind of spread out throughout. And I added this picture of what the island looks like over here, and then I also added a picture of what one part of the summer camp I worked at right here, and that's the summer camp I worked at is called Camp Sealth, if you want to check it out. While I was working there up in Washington, I got to explore Washington a little bit, and some of my favorite things I got to kind of see and do is the Space Needle, which is right here, which I didn't get to go up to the top, but I got to at least go there and see it, and it was kind of amazing to see it in person, just because I've heard a lot about it, and I got to explore the surrounding areas of Seattle. And also in Seattle is the Pike Place Market, which is right here, and has that very kind of famous public market center sign. Pike Place is kind of a mixture of like a farmer's market, and which is kind of open, and then also a bunch of little stores, and it is backed up against the Puget Sound. So like some of the restaurants that are there, you have really great views of the Puget Sound and get to look out in it. Mount Rainier, I didn't get to go there while I was up in Washington, but from many areas of the state, you can kind of see in the background. Starbucks originated in Washington, as many people probably know. And here's a picture of the original Starbucks. And while I was in Seattle, I got to actually visit and go to the original Starbucks. It was very cool. And it was definitely an experience. I got to kind of check off a box of things I wanted to do. Obviously the ferry boats, which you can see kind of up here with the Space Needle, are also very kind of iconic for Washington. They take you to the various different islands in Washington, like Bainbridge and Vashon. And it's another way to kind of get to see the sights of Washington. And just another thing I liked to do while I was there was exploring just the different areas of Washington and seeing kind of the more local things and experiencing the different nature things that are available there that you don't get to normally do in California. And then kind of the two main natural landmarks. The first one is Mount St. Helens, which is this first picture. Kind of the most recent time that it erupted was in 1980, and it was such a huge explosion that a part of the volcano actually collapsed after the explosion, and it killed, I think, around 25 people. And then Mount Rainier, which I talked a little bit in the last slide, is this second picture. And it's also actually a volcano. It's specifically a stratovolcano. And it's actually been dormant since 2016. But scientists are still looking at it to make sure it's still kind of safe. And it's actually the highest mountain in the Cascades, hence why you can see it frequently from many areas of Washington. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.